Here we go. All right, Mike. Interviewing Mike from Emblem Athletic, the venerable CEO, leader, boss man, killing it. You've come a long way, brother.
Uh, a long way, a long time.
Yeah.
Overnight success.
Mm-hmm. So
That's what
let's.
I always tell people when I see those big like milestones, of like, they even like some of the really big ones like acquired. I always like to tell them, congrats on your overnight success, because it's 7 years in the making, or whatever significant portion of their life that they've been spending on these businesses.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to see and watch what has been going on. It's been a fun and wild journey. I love what folks may not know is we are almost the exact opposite when it comes to our Colby A score, where quick start, fact finder, all that kind of stuff. I'm very super high fact finder, right? So on a 9 on the fact finder means I'm not making a decision until I have all the facts. Whereas I think you're the opposite, where you're like 27 out of 10 on quick start. You're
I'm
just like, let's just go.
I'm totally the opposite.
Yeah.
But in rare non fact finder mode, I suppose we should probably explain what it is that we're talking
Hey.
about to our audience,
Thanks,
because those
brother.
are certainly things that we talk about all the time. But
Hmm.
but why don't you give them a quick Colby overview?
Sure, I'd love to. So Colby A test, and fill in here for me, not the full export, but Colby A measures you on 4 dimensions, basically how, and tries to assess whether you're 1 to 10 on how you make decisions and how you work, right? It's a cognitive assessment versus a cognitive assessment, your working style. So if you are in your flow, you're in your zen, you're in your, this is how I like to work, what are you doing? You're either finding facts, researching, like I love to research, I love to dig in and find data, analyze data when I'm doing my best and highest work. Then there's other people that love follow through. They're doing checklists. These are your executive assistants, your operations managers. They just love keeping the trains on the track. Then you've got your quick starts who are like, new idea, shiny object. Let me go here, go there. Let's try something new. Let's just do it, right? Let's jump off the deep end. Your quick starts. And then you've got folks who like to make things with their hands, right? Very tactile people. This is what the Colby A assesses. And so all of us have a makeup, and you can be multiples. You can be low on one, high on another, but there's 4 different ones. And so that's the test we like to use and talk about to describe, what our work styles are. And it also makes it a lot easier to understand the person you're working with when you
Yeah.
know this assessment. Mhm.
I think for me, it's even been a little bit of improved self-awareness and less guilt on the, oh, you're a military academy guy, so you should be super detail oriented. Like you should love checklists. And I I I don't like, and there's even I would say, to the extent that like my brain just does not work that way. Like I cannot sit down and enjoy the detail work. And so I've always felt like I've been like, oh, I suck at the detail stuff. And it's like, no, it's just not, that's not my strong suit. And I'm okay with that. And I should be spending more time on the ideation phase, because I can go way quick, like uncomfortably fast for most people, on from an idea to seeing it to how it's going to impact our business or whatever project that I'm working on. And so
And
the implications of that are making sure that everybody on the team and the people that you work with know their strengths and know their weaknesses. And you and I are absolute opposites. And we've been working
opposites.
together for a year now, and it's hilarious sometimes how poorly we communicate with each other, because I send you stuff quick start style,
Mhm.
and you have to deal with that, and vice versa. I have to deal with your obsession
Absolutely.
over facts and understanding the details of everything.
My interrogation style, it may come across as some on incessant questioning, but isn't it fascinating? Something you said is powerful, right? Is the idea of permission. It's almost like having that insight gives you permission to be yourself, right? To work the way you want to work. Can you dig in a little bit? How has that helped you? Because I'm always fascinated. because it's so different for me, how do you run a company so quick started? Like, how can you, because to me, I'm thinking we need to have structures and SOPs, and it's just like, nah, man, let's roll. Right. So how do you, how do you stay sane? How do you keep the ship on the right direction?
Well, early on, it was not it was not ideal, and I think that's the cool part about that particular test. Not that this is intended to be this like little uh, commercial for Colby. It's more of just like, hey, you need to find the right tools to understand your strengths and weaknesses. But in particular, that one fit well for us. We had a very small team, and two of the very influential people of the company, myself and Tyler, who's now our sort of CTO, are both super high quick starts. And so early on, it was not a very efficient, effective company because we didn't have any balance. We did not have anybody slowing us down. And I would say that for sure there's advantages to that in an early stage company, because we could have been planning out for years the perfect exact thing, and it's very much in alignment with all the other classic startup principles of, move fast and break stuff and blah blah blah. But as we started to hit our stride, we struggled because we didn't have anybody that cared about the other side of the equation. And so we've been very intentional of bringing on partners and team members that are different. And we've got a couple team members in roles now doing things that I used to do, that are ones on Quick Start and 9 on Fact Finder. And as you can imagine, there's lots of, Mike, you can't do that. You can't just start something anymore. And so I've also I think become accustomed to the fact that the organization's different. And so as things grow, you need to know where to apply your strengths. And I would say I apply my quick start stuff to other parts of the business now, instead of getting kind of constant whiplash among our team of what are we doing? Why are we instantly adding this stuff?
Right.
Uh,
It sounds like basically you kind of compartmentalizing where you execute quick start wise
yeah,
and allowing those other folks to be who they are, where quick start is not necessarily needed, which takes it off your plate. Can you
for sure.
talk a little bit about some of the clashes you've had? Sorry, you were going to say something.
I'm going to ask you, how do you ever get anything started?
How do I do anything? Yeah, I
Yeah,
find it fascinating that I get that question a lot, right? Is why, but you're always reading and researching, and I do. And there's sometimes where it's so comforting for me, like I'll spend 3 or 4 days, 12 hours a day researching a topic, right? Just digging into YouTube videos and just figuring it out. But here's what happens. Sometimes I get, some people think of me as a quick start because what happens is uh, I'm fact finding for a reason because I'm curious and I don't have an answer. But and so I don't want to decide and then take an action
yeah.
until I know.
I can attest to that. That once you have determined
Yes,
that you've got all the facts,
there it is.
I can't keep up with you either.
It's
That's
unstoppable.
when you're like, well, now I know this is it.
This is it. And
Answer.
what
So now
happens?
we just, yeah, we go. So I'm amused that I know when Emmanuel has determined he's got all his facts, because then it's on.
Yeah, because it slips from the curiosity or even information to the level of belief. It's almost like I know so much about the topic and what should be done. Why wouldn't I do it? Like it just makes
Right.
too much sense. It would almost be ludicrous to me to go against all the data I've compiled and not do something. So then it's just like, it's like pushing a boulder uphill. Like that's what it's like watching me take action. But then once it's at the top and it crests, it comes careens down where the quick
I
start may
will
have just started faster. Yeah.
I will offer you this observation, as your friend. I know how long you looked at. I think I'm going to start making some videos.
Yeah.
And the difference between you and me is obviously from the quick start standpoint. And I think we were talking about recording this and using it on LinkedIn. But for those that don't know me, and I'm doing some interviews among our classmates from West Point. I just started doing them. I literally was like, all right, I'm going to start. There's no plan. There was no format structure. And Emmanuel told me that he watched a video about how to do interviews,
Yep.
and it never even crossed my mind to even search for something like that. But once Emmanuel did his research, and then as you can see, built a studio, has his fancy camera, everything else, he's on. He's just like cranking out interview video content left and right, and it's awesome.
Yeah. It's just different styles. And I appreciate you saying that, because I went a long time, especially as an entrepreneur, not believing that the way I do things is right, quote unquote, right. So
Yeah,
I tried. I mean, you watch the literature out there, it really is. It leans more towards kind of extroverted, hustle hard, like go, 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 just put your dream out there, manifest, right? Sales, sales, sales. You got to be able to sell and market. And I tried doing that. And I tell you, I went broke. I was driving Uber. I couldn't make it because I was trying to do telemarketing, for goodness sakes, like cold calling people on the phone. It's the opposite of my personality. Just show up and riff. No, like I can't do it.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was miserable for me. And so I didn't do it. But now sitting here behind the camera, I mean, and doing more of a consultative sales approach where folks send people that need help to me. And even this, right? I put out content, and if someone is interested, they call me. It fits much more with my personality. So that's to your question of how I handle my business and how I run things. It's very much inbound. I put out what I think is useful, and those that resonate with it, like they show up. And
Yeah,
that's how I run it.
I think certainly the takeaway from this little discussion about Quick Start versus Fact Finder, and I think those two are the ones that are most polar opposite, but that's because those are our strengths. There's the other ones in there about the implementers and sort of the tactile piece of, like, they like to do some of the things. Um, if you're operating in a space that you're not comfortable with, it's painful, and you
Yeah.
can feel like it's not, that you're not good at it, and it's the proverbial not a good fit, right? And so I think everybody, as they're thinking about whether it's starting their business or starting some new initiative inside of an existing organization, if you don't know how you work, it can be painful to try to fit yourself into a box that's not a good fit for you.
Yeah, it's a miserable experience, and you end up doing a lot of things. This is where you get this feeling of not being true to yourself, right? Not being following, and your business becomes a chore. That's when, I mean, we got into business to leave the corporate rat race, to leave, being told what to do and to work for yourself. But then you create a structure where you have to work the way you used to work or the way someone else would work. Say why, right? And I don't think people catch that enough. Is you can be who you are. That's the whole reason you became an entrepreneur. If you don't want to work, like for me, I prefer to work at night. I tried working in the mornings, like wake up at 4 a.m. Wake up. I can't do it. Right. I wake up.
You sent me notes at like 3 in the morning, so I know you had a long night this morning, because I wake up, I do my workout.
Yep.
We should talk about another one of, like, some routine pieces.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
then
I always like when it crosses to about 3:30 in the morning, because oh, Mike's awake. I can text him now. On the Pacific time it's 3, but your time is 6:30. Yeah, because you're early riser. I'm a late go to bedder. But
yep,
yeah, so
in your
you can
element.
shape it however you want. You know, I usually work from about 10 to 2 to 5, take a nap, and then wake up and I'm in my zone. No one's texting. So from midnight to about 4 a.m., that's when I get a lot done. So do it however you want.
Yep. Cool, man. It's
Yeah.
good chatting with you about this one.
Yeah, cool. You've got a fascinating story of when we first started working here. And it was actually before we started working. I'd love to hear. That was the first introduction to Quick Start Fact Finder before we even knew those terms, right?
Oh, for sure. So I saw your interview maybe with
Scott,
SABM.
SABM, yep, Scott Mackey's.
I'm going to confess, as the quick start, I probably didn't listen to it. I just saw it and was like, all right,
Look at that guy.
that seems to know what what to talk about.
Yeah.
Uh, it was early. It was early, like just a couple months in at Emblem, and I really didn't know too many people in the e-commerce space at the time. Like I had come from 10 years of engineering and government, work and stuff like that, which, as you can imagine, was a painful fit for me.
Hmm.
Uh, and so Emblem had just started actually seeing some sales. Like we had a $10,000 month, and I was so excited. And I had a million ideas of, we're going to start all these spin-off brands, and what if I did this and that and this and that. And I called you up and was like, here's my business, what's going on? And you were like, what are you talking about? No, you were like, you've got one thing that's working. That's so rare to have anything that's that's working. Just focus on that and scale that. And then I was like, I think I might have pissed this guy off or something. Like, he was like, you were a little angry at the time, and now knowing that, at that time you were like also in the middle of your own, business question crisis piece. But yeah, the focus thing is tough for an entrepreneur early stage, to like know if they can really consistently stay on target when everything else always, keeps saying pivot, 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 pivot this, pivot that. And I think that word is way overused, and sends people in the wrong direction more often than not.
Did it work? What you chose to focus on?
Yeah, system wise, the market did not work, but staying focused on the customization piece,
Hmm.
when we were looking at layering in all sorts of other things, and in a very fact finder way, we even focused on some markets based on the data instead of just instinctively going after some stuff. So for sure, I think the focus challenge is tough, but man, it takes time, and
Yeah,
it's a long bumpy road to get there.
right.
What about you?
Which part?
The what am I like? What is my business, and the iterations thereof that you've
Oh,
had since
geez.
we first started working together?
Geez, and kind of what I was leading to there was the idea that it's the pivoting, pivoting, pivoting. It ends up, the problem is like you have to go so deep with some of this stuff that if you're pivoting, you literally could miss out right before you get to when it's going to take off. Right. And so that was kind of what I was getting, like, did it work? Is it was that decision, that moment, like, yes, I'm going to focus here. But it still took iterating from there to get it to scale, 5, 10x, over the next 6 months. And so that was the same for me. Is it has been a year. So like I said, I got to the point where I was going to go to the retreat with Bill. It was about the same time we were having that conversation. That was 2 years ago, February. I think it was like 2018. I had decided, you know what, I give up. I quit. I've been doing this entrepreneur thing. I finally am on my own with this business, and I failed. I screwed it up. I don't have any more business. I put all my eggs in one client basket, one big paying client, and that client just told me, "Yeah, I didn't pay this month's bill, and I'm not going to pay you anymore. Bye." And I was like, "But I kind of shut all my lead gen down to
Yeah,
focus on your big
have
account."
you?
And yeah, rookie mistake, right? Like I put all my eggs in that basket, and it dried up, and so I was done. I had no money. So I was like, all right, well, drive an Uber and trying to figure it out. I shouldn't go up there, but I went up there and I got a lot of, and this is the benefit of having a mentor and a peer circle, right? And I got to hear, because I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only one that was struggling with this. And everyone there, all the guys there's probably about 10, 15 guys were like, no, we've all been there. In fact, here, let me help you out. Here's some business, and here's some encouragement. Here's some things you could try. So my pivots were a lot about finding out what I didn't realize was I just didn't know what I didn't know. I came into this thing thinking, oh, West Point grad, I was in the military, I've run an Amazon fulfillment center. I've even started a company with my sisters and my family. We grew that to 5 million a year in business. Like, I'll be able to crush anything I do. Business will be easy. Negative. Anything entrepreneurial, if you're doing it right, is disruptive, is innovative, meaning there's no roadmap. You're hacking your way through the brush. You're going to fail. So you have to pick something, focus, run that trail down, and figure it out. So that's what I had to do. So there were simple things that I didn't know about running an agency, like, for example, getting paid up front, right? Like that's how you have to manage your cash flow, right? I was getting bills paid later. Like I said, I lost that client a month after the bill was due. It's like, why do I do that? Then ACH, right? Getting those automated billing versus getting paid just however, in billing, and then little things like what our niche should be. When I first started, I was taking all comers. I wanted to build this agency that allows, we can do anything you need as an e-commerce business. And now over the last year, we've niched down to Facebook, Google, Shopify, and Klaviyo email. And that's pretty much what we do, right? And so it's been that journey of focusing and narrowing, similar to yourself. But
I was going to say, for as radically different as our businesses are, it was the same two problems that I think I would say are universal, and that was we had a really poor financial engine to start.
Yep.
I was chasing checks, and there's insane amounts of risk and cash flow issues, and we would sell product to a school, and then you'd say, well, we're a school, of course we're good for it, right? Like, what kind of credit risk is a school? I'm surely they're going to pay, right? The bigger question is, when are they going to pay? And there was this one customer that, it was like, well, you need to fill out this form instead. I am not a form person. I would much rather just not ever fill out any other paperwork. That never gets done. So I was a terrible fit anyway to try to chase down bills from schools. And then they'd be like, oh, well, we got to get the superintendent has to approve it at the next quarterly budget meeting, and it's fine, we'll pay you eventually. Like, I'm like, I need the money now. And you needed the product a month ago, and you were, complaining about it taking a couple weeks to make. Here we are months later, and I still haven't been paid for it, and I'm wasting my time chasing it after. And I thought, how could I do this at scale? Am I going to have a whole team of people chasing after schools to get paid for product that we fought tooth and nail to get? And so I was like, all right, if we're going to grow, I need to change. And we went to all up, like, pay. You want it, you pay for it up front. And if you can't do that, you're not a fit for us. And we lost some business, but that's fine. You can't serve everybody, which then led to, and we still have this problem. We're not perfect at this. I say it's like we opened up a restaurant that the restaurant name was Food. Are you hungry? Are you hungry? Whatever you want. You just come in. We don't have a menu. Just tell us what you want.
We'll make it.
Tyler, he's like, it was like we were running in the kitchen in the back, Googling how to make something, and then running to the grocery store, buying the ingredients at retail price, coming back in, serving it to them, and being like, this is our specialty. Thanks for ordering our special. So you can't be the 24-hour diner that serves everything unless you're built for that, and we were not built for that. And so it took us a while to get a real understanding of what's our customer and why and how, and you have to have some focus to it. Otherwise you're just going to continue to meander.
Yeah. Financial engine and product selection, niche down, focus. Yeah. Without riches in the niches. Yes, I've heard that one. And I think it's fascinating because you'll hear a lot of the logic out there being, just hustle hard, right? Like, just get out there and start selling. You need to know how to sell. But I think what we've discovered over the years through lots of blood, sweat, and tears and frustration is negative. Nope. Riches are in the niches, like you said. And you have to be willing to say no to business, right? If you don't want to pay me up front, sorry, I can't do business with it.
But it's still so hard. It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I broke down. We just took it. We just took an order about a month or a couple of weeks ago.
And it's possible. Hopefully it works out.
It's tough. I've been burned a bunch of times, but yeah, it's improvement. Yeah. So I think that's the other thing is don't beat yourself up over it being like a instant overnight perfection, adjustment.
And that's a fascinating point to go into. Like, there's a lot of headaches being an entrepreneur, right? A lot of stress. Why do it? Why not just stick at the corporate job? Like, why did you, you were there, you had the corporate job, you were doing it.
My neighbor, he worked, he's a police officer. Mm-hmm. And he was like, a friend of mine asked me, if I could go golfing tomorrow?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll just take the day off."
Yeah.
I I could not. I can't comprehend. I cannot comprehend a situation like that where I have like days off,
Yeah.
and that I'm part of such a well-oiled machine that I could just say, I'm just going to take tomorrow off, everybody. Now, now I would say, and this is probably a whole nother topic that we could get into, that is the aspiration, that the business can kind of run itself, and that we could remove ourselves from it. But generally speaking, that's certainly not why I put myself through all this adventure. I don't know why. I don't know why entrepreneurship took such a route for me. My parents owned their own businesses when I was growing up. I I just, it was bars and restaurants and stuff, and I distinctly remember them saying, "Don't ever own your own business." And I have this like third grade, "What are you gonna do when you grow up?" Uh, picture. And I wrote down in the third grade that I wanted to get a good government job with a defined benefit pension. Like, like
In
that.
third grade.
Third grade, I wanted a good pension plan.
Oh, Mike.
And so that's certainly not, not what I have going on here.
Exact
What about
opposite.
you?
Me? Why do I choose it? I love citing fact finder books, right? The hard thing about hard things. Ben Horowitz talks about it. He says, I would not wish entrepreneurship on my worst enemy, right? We are going into something with a 98% failure rate. In any other business, that is, or any other endeavor, that's a guaranteed failure. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to jump in for a second, and this
Sure.
is this is a fact finder mission that I'm going to put you on, because it's
Yep.
a theory I have.
Mm.
There's so much negative
Yeah.
thought around that, like entrepreneurship is like the high failure rate of starting a business.
Yep.
I think that data comes from the very, very macro level, um, how many businesses are started and closed, kind of stuff. And I think so many like little pop-up real estate business, like there's an LLC created and closed for all sorts of reasons other than failure. I think entrepreneurship does have a higher degree of success, but that's about as far as I want to investigate this idea. This
Yeah.
idea.
I can
But
give you data.
but for the most part, I think you're right that there's always this like, oh, it's going to fail, and then here we are doing it. So you decided to go against the 98 percentile
Yeah.
chance of failure, and then
Yeah. And honestly, the reason why he says that is you only do it if you cannot see yourself doing anything else. And I think that's what happened for me, right? We're both West Point. We went to West Point, and then we went into the military, and then I went and got my MBA. So I went back to school. I liked school. Then I went to Amazon. I worked there. I've worked at other companies. I've tried a lot of stuff, and I think that's kind of been my last 20 years, if you will, is just what is it I want? What is it? And really, it was a story of stumbling into things where it was like, I'm not sure if I want this, but I'm gonna try it. I think so. And then be like, oh hell, whoops, nope, don't like this, don't like this one bit. I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm
yep,
done. And that's what it was. And then I stumbled into this, and it was the type of misery that I enjoy. You know, the type of stress and
yeah,
frustration that keeps
I,
me alive, where I'm
I
energized at the
thrive on
negative.
it.
Yeah, it
It's
just feels right.
if you are solely financially motivated,
Yeah,
there are so many easier ways to
yeah,
to
a
make
lot,
money
a lot.
uh, than
Being an
this crazy.
entrepreneur, because I mean, it's literally walking a tightrope without anything below, and you've never walked a tightrope before, right? You got one shot.
And it's going uphill.
It's going
I
uphill.
think that's I think if I think that's the um, part that I've been most surprised about
Mhm.
is 3 years ago it would be like, oh my god, I have to solve this $6,000 problem.
Yeah,
and then like and then a year later you're like, oh my god,
but
how am I going to solve this $16,000 problem?
yeah,
And then like the next year, you're like, oh, how do I come up with $180,000 by next week for what?
Yeah,
Right? Like it keeps
it just
climbing
gets worse.
higher.
Yeah,
Uh,
to cite Ben Horowitz again, he says it's like that. Every company's he's taken like 3 or 4 companies public, right? Big, huge
yeah,
organization. And he was describing he has this like he starts the company and he has these ulcers in his stomach, this bile, can't sleep at night. And they're like, well, when does that go away? He's like, when I sell the company and I'm done. Like when I leave, it is constant, never-ending stress and pressure. So why
yeah.
would anyone do that? You have to kind of want to.
Uh,
And actually,
I've mentioned it elsewhere, and I know we're just like all over the place. Just a fluid conversation between two people that suffer greatly sometimes. Uh, Shoe Dog
mhm. Nike.
about Nike
Yeah.
has nothing to do with what people like. Like it's not a book about Michael Jordan. It's no business secrets about marketing. It's about the 20-year
Mm.
grind of starting that company. And I think I've read and seen some interviews with Phil Knight where there was sort of that, like, the narrative got away from him because some people just commercially, like, casually were like, oh yeah, there was the waffle iron thing, and then it just boom, overnight success. And he's like, no, it was a 20-year grind. and and the part that I remember was that, like, it wasn't until the company went public where, like, he had his exit where he felt calm, like where he's like, I slept peacefully for the first time, in 20 years. And I think there's some ways to do it better, and we could talk about the unsustainable habits that entrepreneurs can get into without some help and coaching. But even with help and coaching, it's it's a grind. It's
Right.
tough. It is not easy.
And I think that grind speaks to your earlier question about more data around the 98%. I think that's a flawed metric also, right? And if you'll allow me to jump on my soapbox for a minute, I think that it's the wrong goal. That 98% number is for companies that make it past 5 years, right? And that are still in business, and or the ones that have reached a certain threshold that have passed small, medium enterprise, right? Like
Yep.
that should not be your goal. If you're an entrepreneur and this is your first business, I'd say that's your second goal, right? Your first goal is to get freedom of time, right? And what I mean by that is just replace your income from your job, right? Because I think what happens is we were talking about how miserable it is because we come in with preconceived notions of how business is supposed to work based on our corporate or our previous life or our military. Like I talked about how I built a company, I've been all these things. Now here I am, I'm going to win here. No, it's completely different. My goal, so it's twofold. I come in with these preconceived notions of how it's supposed to work, and I have this oversized expectation of how big it should get. I want to be part of the 2%, that go public or that get funded or that all these big things. Those are two things that really create a lot of pressure. My first and only goal should be, I just want to be able to afford to live here, right? I need my rent. I need my
Yeah.
car
I need
payment. Yeah,
I need to dig myself out of the financial hole that
exactly.
I'm in.
Right. And then the second, and then right after that, it should be I need to now automate this thing so that I have my time so I can pay my bills, have someone manage it, and I don't have to have, time. Because just think about what that allows. You now have freedom to think. To me, that's the true American dream that capitalism in this country provides, is being able to say, you know what, I have income coming in, I have savings in the bank, and I'm going to take off work tomorrow and go
Yeah.
golfing. I can do whatever the hell I want. You can start thinking, well, maybe I want to be a painter. Maybe I don't want to build a $1 billion company. I want to paint.
Yeah.
So that's why I
I
think. Mhm.
I think one thing for sure is that we could probably talk about the unique military kind of perspective, certainly from, like, undergrad, not really thinking about or being taught about business. I always had this, like, oh, if you're going to be in the corporate world, the goal is to be CEO,
Yep.
in the same sense that if I was going to stay in the Army, the goal is to naturally become chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? Like, like it's this inherent like, oh well, surely I have to go along this linear path. And then on the corporate side, that was sort of that was certainly my expectation is, oh, if I'm going to go there, I have to build this career that would lead to the top at some
Yeah.
point. And it's taken me a long time to realize that's not like, I have no interest. I think publicly traded CEOs, that job's rough.
Sucks. Yeah, that's a horrible job.
Ugh, I have no interest in doing that. You could not pay me enough.
Mm,
I also think because there's not nearly the upside
yeah.
for the CEO, because it's already an existing thing that's not exciting to me, of like taking over the reins of something that's so established. As I'm saying all this, I'm laughing that like someday, like 20 years from now, I'll probably like have some opportunity to be CEO someplace, and they'll like find this interview of me
Find this
being like,
video.
be like, oh, why would I ever want to be
You don't want this
CEO of
guy.
something? So you can archive this one and pull it out
Yeah.
20 years from now when I'm like interviewing for some CEO job someplace.
Yeah.
I'll evolve, I'm sure, by then.
Yeah. I'm sure you can spin it. You'll have a whole spin team for you to
Yes.
say, "I was my younger self. Yeah, I've matured. Yeah, all that."
I'm just keeping all my options open in case there's an opportunity down the
Okay.
line.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, future Mike didn't really mean everything he said. So
Correct.
yeah,
Correct.
he does want the job. Give it to him.
Yep.
Yeah. So good stuff, man. Great stuff. I think that coaching, yeah, abrupt shift. We wanted to chat about coaching too.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
That's a
valuable that
that's a
is.
tough one. That's a tough one. I don't know why it was always such a sensitive I mean, like truly like sensitive, kind of like awkward topic of I think maybe because we just never really had any exposure to it. I always viewed it as gimmicky. I mean, that's really like what I viewed it as, was like, um, you know, there's these self-help, fooey, yoga instructors that are doubling down as life coaches. Um, and so I always lumped in any sort of business coaching in that crowd. And certainly when I was on the corporate side, I had no interest in it and I didn't understand the value of it. And now, any chance I get to talk to somebody thinking about entrepreneurship or in entrepreneurship and starting out and trying to figure out, I'm like, well, who else do you have on your team from a coach standpoint, from a peer standpoint? I can't imagine uh, being where we're at without it. And I think you share that same opinion as I do.
I'm the exact same way. Do you mind me asking what does your coaching staff look like right now? Who coaches you?
Sure. So I started out and I tried to do it informally, and I think that's the easiest place to start. I was super involved here in Columbus with some Techstars managed events. One of them was Startup Week, and I got to build a lot of a good network of entrepreneurs and successful ones who'd exited companies, and so there's sort of like informal mentorship, but nobody ever really has the like, would you be my mentor, and here's the like weekly cadence of which we'll meet, and you'll help me with these problems. And that's the problem. Is I started off thinking that's coaching. I'm going to have these people that help me with my business. They still help me with my business. I trust them and I share with them all the time, but it's very infrequent, right?
Yeah.
It's not a regular cadence. And so, I had looked into Vistage and some other ones. Frankly, I found it surprising that there was some revenue like minimums, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm not there yet because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I met Bill Watkins, who runs an entrepreneur group called Lions Pride, through a friend. He's a West Point guy, and a friend of mine connected me with him. Not even, I think, from a coaching standpoint, just from a like, maybe you guys should know each other. And it was yet another entrepreneur peak and valley of like I was running out of money and I didn't know what I was doing, and I just confessed all my sins to Bill and was like, "Hey, like, what do you think I should do?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's a tough spot, but what's your plan going forward?" He's like, "I know you'll figure it out. I know you'll slay the dragon and move on to the next thing because that's what entrepreneurs do. How will you make sure that this doesn't happen again?" And so I signed up for a program that at the time I was like, I don't have the money for this. I don't have the time for this,
Yeah.
but it's a consistent commitment. It's like a personal trainer at the gym.
Yep.
I can only go to the gym and kind of go through the motions, or I can make a commitment and say, I'm going to meet with my trainer 3 times a week and I'm going to show up and they're going to give me things to work on. And I'm going to be engaged with that. And I don't think anybody ever questions the value of a trainer in many other portions of business. And so why would I question the value of a coach or a trainer in business?
Yeah. I agree. I think coaching is the best kept or most hidden secret of entrepreneurship. Because I mean, if you buy into the, my soapbox speech of entrepreneurship, if you're doing something truly disruptive, there's no training for it. No one knows how to do it, right?
No roadmap
Like
for this.
that means there's only one way you're going to learn, and that's through failing. You have to fail. I think the best way to mitigate that pain is to have people who've been in a similar scenario, right? As you. So that's what your coach is there for. Right? Your coach is there to kind of guide you. And I have several. I went all in on this thing, and I'm biased towards being fact finder, but I have coaches for executive, like Bill Watkins. We're part of the Lions Pride together. I don't know what I'd do without the guy and without the group. I've got another coach on the health side. He's been helping me with not just losing weight, but like my whole holistic, like meditation and life skills, almost like therapy in a sense. Sometimes, I mean, it's an hour a week, and I've lost 80 pounds now, right, in the last year or two. So that's been helpful. And then I've got a bunch, like, even though I run an agency running ads, I have for each of those areas, Shopify, Facebook, Google Ads, and email. I've got some type of a coach or a coaching program that I'm a part of for each of those, so that way I can level up and kind of see what I don't see. Like, usually have blinders on, right, when we're running our business. So to me, and I think it's a powerful thing you said about coaching versus mentorship. Mentorship to me, I don't believe is what we're talking about here, in case folks get confused. You can have mentors, that's fine, but I like paying someone to help me stay accountable, like a coach, right? Like you think about NFL coaches.
I used to think they were the same, and
They're not. Very different. Coach and a mentor, two very different things. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's absolutely vital that you have, the right coaching staff, if you will, coaching staff around you. So
I would
village.
say one of the other pieces that I was surprised about and didn't appreciate the value of is the peer side of it. I had a conversation with a friend of ours. I think he's an 01 or 02 grad. So he's taking battalion command, and he's like, yeah, I've got all these other friends who are also battalion commanders that I can talk to and trade notes on. And I thought, man, if I didn't have a peer group of business owners going through the same stuff as me, I wouldn't have anybody to talk to. Right? You can get a mentor who's been there and done that. You can get a coach who's going to really be the guide for it, but you also need some peers. And there's not a chance to have peers inside of your business because you're at the top.
Yeah.
You don't have anybody else who's like as stressed about making payroll and things like that as you are. Yeah. Unless you have some peers that are kind of going through the same thing. So that's been super helpful.
Yeah. It's a lonely experience being an entrepreneur because by its very nature, like we've been saying, you're doing something no one's done before, if you're doing it right, and no one's going to get it. No one's going to understand. So people who are in a similar path can help the pain. So rapid fire, we got to start wrapping up. This is good. We could talk for hours, man, but would you consider yourself more of an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm certainly not as introverted as you, but I'm not that much of an extrovert from what most people think. Right? They know the Army Navy pranks and the fun stuff. And fun, I think, gets quickly associated with an extrovert. I I really do enjoy driving alone.
Mm.
Like I will take a long drive alone to a night out having to socialize. And so I don't know. I certainly I recognize I've got some characteristics of both,
So
but I'm not solely one or the other. What about you?
hardcore introvert. In fact, they always talk about, well, introvert, that's how you get your energy. So I definitely need to be on my own. Right? I live in my man cave and I don't leave except for once a week to get some groceries because I have to, because I haven't figured out this Instacart thing yet. But once I do, I will never leave this place. Got my
Yeah,
treadmill.
the pandemic of 2020 is
Yeah,
like
I'm
no
ready.
big thing for you.
No issue. I'm good. Batten
Yeah.
down the hatches. Yeah. Get my exercise on my treadmill, and my human interaction is through this camera on Zoom. Hardcore introvert, and not just introvert, but I'm also a shy introvert. So like, there's the whole shyness for a sec. So you can be an outgoing introvert, right? There are people like that. That like social situations. They just need to pull away and recharge. Or you can be a shy extrovert. Where you like being around other people, but you feel uncomfortable in social situations. But yeah, definitely shy introvert. How do you think being a Mhm.
How do you build a team when you don't like talking to people?
It's a great question. I don't. I like to interact with people on my terms. Where if the worst thing for me, I'll say it by saying the opposite. The worst thing for me is to be stuck at a party, at a networking event, let's say, talking to someone that I don't want to be talking to, who is just overwhelming me with extroversion and trying to get jokes and trying to get me to laugh. Hey man, you all right? Everything good? That was funny though, right? It's just like,
Get
I get,
out of
get
here.
out. And there's a line of them waiting. All right, hey, you're Emmanuel, right? Like, hey man, hey, let's chat. It's like, no, I got to get out of here. That's the worst part. So the opposite. So like when I'm on sales calls, I like Zoom, right? I don't want to be, let's grab lunch. Let's have, meet me at my office. No, I'm not doing that. You can call me on Zoom or on the phone at a time that you set up through my Calendly link. Don't schedule it with me. Go through just pick a time, when I put out content. Oh, go ahead.
I- This is where you and I completely differ. I will take lunch anytime.
Mhm.
Like one on one,
Really
I have a hard time. I've had a hard time missing out on those because of COVID.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I found out the hard way, telemarketing and doing sales calls. I can't do that. Well, let me say it this way. I can, but it burns me out to the point where I have to take the rest of the day off to recover. Like it's dramatic for me. And so even my team meetings, they're all on Zoom, right? And they're scheduled ahead of time. We have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 hours, and that's it. That's all I can take. And then that's the internal team. That's how I manage the team. And we have very structured systems. Mondays, we have Asana. Wednesday, we have deep dive on creative. And Friday, we have metrics review. And everyone knows that's what we got to do. And we get through the week that way. And then when it comes to clients, same thing. We have a bi-weekly call. Every 2 weeks, we talk, and it's scheduled. It's through Zoom. And then when I'm trying to market myself, I'm not doing sales calls. I'm not doing a lot of social media. I'm doing videos that I make on my own time with my
Yep.
own energy, and I put it out there, or content and emails. So that's how I built my business to fit kind of being the shy introvert. I interact with humans and people on my time. So
I'm I'll have to find some test to categorize me because I would much prefer to just meet the person
mm,
and with very little structure or agenda,
oof,
um, to just see what happens.
just see what happens, huh? Okay.
Just even think about our. I know, I'm putting you in a tough spot, even on the idea of like, let's just get together and talk. Because you're like, well, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah. Yes,
I'm like,
for
I don't
sure.
know. There's a million things that we could talk about.
One
Of
agenda.
course, you showed up with like the list of things. I think that's as much introvert as it is fact finder. I wonder how much alignment there is of those.
It's a good question. That's part of, like, we talked a lot about the Colby, but I think one thing that Bill has helped a lot with his group is it's a mashup of these assessments, right? So there's the Colby, there's the Strengths Finder, Fascination Advantage, you got Myers-Briggs, just different.
What's your fascination advantage?
I am is it no, Mystique and Alert. I can't remember what those build
Yeah,
into.
but that's
Yeah.
that's you.
The detective, that's what I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I fascinate. That's how others see me when I'm at my best, is I'm investigating the hell out of something. Just question, question, question. Yeah.
Yep.
So last minute, do you think being a West Point grad helps or hurts you as an entrepreneur?
There's the answer is both. I think many parts of entrepreneurship resort back to leading a team.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for the experiences we had at West Point to just give us even some like basic foundational pieces that I think a lot of other places overlook, take for granted, and those come second nature to us. Leaders eat last kind of things, right? Of like, there's other places that's like a novel concept, and we're like, well, yeah, of course you take care of your people. So I think some of those things have been super helpful. I don't give as much credit to the and this gets back to like, oh, you're an Army guy, so you must be super disciplined and detail oriented. I'm like, no, I am most definitely not. But I also think we don't have, this is the advantage and disadvantage. We didn't have 4 years of studying business and internships and corporate speak. And so there's things that we just don't know and that we take for granted, that we don't know any better. And that can be a good thing. But it's also tough sometimes to be taken seriously, I think, against other people that have just had a longer trail and background and experience in the corporate space.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the biggest thing for me I like is that, I mean, you're taught to endure, right? And that is something that is definitely needed. I think the biggest strength we have as military and grads is we can endure, So
Is
that's
this special guest or
special
was
guest, Bill Watkins.
Am I barging in?
Right on time, sir.
Perfect timing?
Coach extraordinaire.
I need to see you at least once a week.
Yeah, I know. My therapy.
What are you guys talking about?
We're doing an interviewing for our LinkedIn videos.
We just been talking for an hour.
Yeah, we're wrapping up. We'll end it. That was a big question.
Yeah. I think this is perfect. This is a good question for Bill, since we got like bonus guest here. See,
yeah, if you don't mind, Bill.
Just send him the question.
Yeah, the question was, does being a West Point grad help you as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely.
Does it help or hurt, and in what ways?
I think it only hurt. I think, in my perspective of a bunch of my own companies, and then observing lots of member companies, is it only hurts in our mindset where we say things like, well, I don't know anything about business.
Yep.
Which
we were just using that excuse.
It holds us back from really deep diving in. Yeah, we use it as an excuse, or we use it as a parking brake. And it's weak, but that's how we look at it. Number two, I think it helps incredibly, because being an entrepreneur requires resilience and focus and grit and all the things that we learn at West Point and in the Army. Those things carry straight over and make us more successful in small business. I'm not saying, billion-dollar unicorns and all that sort of stuff, but I think in what we're doing here, it's a game changer.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bill. Wise words. And with that, Mr. Mike Nemeth, thank you, sir, from Emblem Athletics, CEO, father, husband. Appreciate it.
You bet, man.
Take
Later.
care. Bye.